and welcome to another episode of Cup of Joe. I am your host, Joe Van Kampen, and today with me we have Ashley Rode, the Manager of Marketing Science. Thank you for joining, Ashley.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Ashley, so we've got one burning question that's been driving everybody nuts. What does marketing science actually mean?
Great question. Well, marketing science is our made-up term for my team. Basically what that means is that they're the analytical group. So they run paid ads, anything under that paid ads atmosphere. Google Search, Google Display, Facebook, anything kind of under that umbrella.
Okay, and where does the science aspect of that come in?
So basically it's being able to take marketing concepts that we understand and looking at that from an analytical perspective. So reading Google Analytics and metrics that we find in Google Ads and bringing them back into the marketing perspective and giving advice from there.
Okay, so basically being able to say, here's a whole bunch of the data between your Google ads and your Facebook ads and your Instagram ads and so forth and so on. You would give that off to the director of accounts who's managing the account and say, this is where they're seeing the most efficiencies and where they're seeing the most success, and help them build their strategies based on that.
Absolutely.
Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Very cool. So one of the questions that we run into quite often in the senior living space has to do with the fair housing laws. So how do you and your team make sure that when you're building out these ads that you're taking all of those fair housing laws into account?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely inhibits some of the options that we would normally have,
Sure.
like being able to target by age. So instead of doing that, we really hone in on things like having the right keywords and the right ad copy, and even the right platform, because different platforms are going to inherently have different audiences, and so utilizing that to make sure we're reaching our right audience, because with senior living we have the residents as well as the adult child influencer, and so tailoring your message to them is how we make sure that we're
Sticking towards that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. No, that makes a lot of sense. So really making sure that you understand who the demographic is and making sure that your messaging and your imagery that you're utilizing in the ads basically correlates to that individual specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Now, from a layperson's perspective, myself, how difficult would it be for me to come into the space and be able to develop these types of ads and understand who we're targeting and make sure that I'm getting that best cost per lead that we can get?
Yeah, I always love this question because everybody wants to try it themselves, and I love saying go for it. And when you're confused, come back and we'll keep talking. There's a lot to learn about all the different platforms that you can use and how they work. My team is, they have a lot of knowledge and they're learning constantly.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. A lot of what your team does is very heavily based on the branding side of business, whereas in the Google Ads side, which I know they also support, is more on the lead generation aspect. Do you find that it's a good mix of both that a client needs for their strategy, or do you feel like they need to lean one way or the other?
100% more than one platform is generally my kind of first advice.
Okay.
Leaning into one heavily means you're leaving the rest of it on the table, and we always talk about filling the funnel, and you can, the best way to do that is to use multiple platforms to do so.
So when you say filling the funnel, what are we talking about there?
So basically what I mean is from every aspect of somebody who has no idea what type of services you offer or what you are versus somebody who knows exactly what they're looking for, they know who you are, and they're ready to make that next step. So call or whatever that might be.
Oh, okay. So at the top of the funnel, they're kind of maybe the person that doesn't know you, doesn't even know that they need your service, and at the bottom of the funnel, they're ready to buy. So different types of advertising would kind of bring them through that funnel so that you guide them down the garden path, if you will, to make sure that they end up connecting with you.
Definitely, because it can be a really long period of time before somebody, between when somebody learns who you are versus when they're ready to take action.
So with that being said, how important is a good website for what you guys do?
Extremely.
Yeah.
The website is really that foundation for everything, because all of our advertising regardless of where you are, what platform, ultimately brings you to the website, and that's where they get more information. So it needs to be clear, easy to understand, and easy to navigate.
So the website is kind of the backbone of the entire marketing strategy, and then everything else points to that.
Absolutely.
Would you ever recommend in a situation that somebody might want to do a leads page over a website with the types of ads that you build?
You definitely can. There's certain times when you might want to do that. For the most part, our team relies on having a really good website. Our websites are great, and they provide a lot of information, and we build them based off of some best practices on our end as well.
Okay, so the leads page aspect would be if you don't have a strong site.
Yes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So with your team, when you're looking to hire somebody new, what are some aspects that you look for? What we always talk about the unicorn, right? what does that look like? What are you looking for in those people when you bring them on?
Yeah, such a great question. Ultimately, I'm really looking for somebody who is curious and they want to learn more. They want to understand more. My team is amazing because they always have questions, and they always they don't just leave it at questions. They want to know the answer, and they want to understand as much as they possibly can to get to that best answer.
So do you think that inquisitiveness, I guess, of your team, is that what makes your team as successful as they've been?
Definitely. On top of that, they're also just so smart, but definitely the curiosity.
Very cool. So when we originally came into the senior living space from Pod Marketing, one thing that we noticed kind of right off the bat was that the cost per lead that we were able to get for our clients was substantially lower. Knowing that we had a lot of expertise in other medical industries like eye care and dental and different aspects like that, what kind of efficiencies did you see in those areas that maybe supported your team in getting so successful in the senior living space?
Yeah, really great question. It's interesting that each vertical still behaves differently.
Yeah.
So having a really good understanding of some of those best practices, like from Google, for instance, really kind of set us up to we already had those learnings, and so being able to start an account from a best practices baseline really helped us get started.
Very cool. Now, Citizen is a premier partner of Google. I guess, what does that mean, and how does that help us, or does it help us? Is it just the fact that we are that?
Yeah. So what that means essentially is that we're in the top 3% of agencies in our country, which is a pretty cool thing. It also means that there's different promotions and product betas and advanced technical support that we get because we have that status. So just a closer relationship with Google.
Very cool. So it's not necessarily that we hear about things ahead of everybody else. It's like, hey, when we hear about things, Google might say, hey, by the way, check out this tool. You can beta test this and roll with it, and we get to give that feedback back to them. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, okay. And if those tests and everything are successful, obviously our clients are successful because of that. If they're not, what does that look like?
Yeah, Google takes their feedback pretty seriously.
Awesome.
So if we're unhappy with something, we'll tell them.
Very cool. For you moving into the senior living space, what did you find was the biggest switch out from those other medical sides? Like, what was the biggest thing that you needed to learn?
I think one of the biggest things that we learned is that, so normally when you run more than one campaign, you get learnings that can be applied to all the other campaigns. And we definitely still see that in senior living, but the biggest thing is that it's different per community. Mm-hmm. Each one is very specific and really requires that dedicated analyst to understand what's going on for each one and make very specific recommendations and suggestions per community.
Very cool. Yeah, working with your team has been very, very exciting. There's certain members where they'll come to me with different questions and things like that, and it really sparks a lot. Like, as an example, the fair housing laws aspect of that. that was something that I did not foresee coming into the senior living space, but has been obviously something that we've had to adjust to. And your team has been very, very quick to change the way that they're building their ads to make sure that they're accommodating for that. So that's awesome. Do you know of anything specifically in regards to the fair housing laws that your team has had to be aware of, that they needed to maybe change the way that they build the campaigns?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones is the age targeting and being unable to select exactly who you're targeting, because it's such a big range, and it definitely changes how we consider our ads.
Very cool. From a ads perspective, Facebook, Instagram, Google Display, do you feel like there's one avenue that performs better, or what does that look like?
I think it depends on the purpose. My favorite, though, really is just to combine a couple of them. Doing Google search and display in combination with each other really ends up getting us better results than doing just, like, let's say, search on its own.
Very cool. One thing that we have been seeing a lot of success in the senior living space is YouTube ads. What are your thoughts on YouTube advertising? Do you feel like that's adding a lot of benefits, or do you feel like it's something that's a flash in the pan?
I love YouTube. YouTube is one of my favorite platforms, and the more we get to use it, I think the more success that we see with it. I know it can be daunting to get into because videos take a long time to create and make sure that they are really going to do what you need them to do, but I think YouTube is so undervalued in terms of creating that audience and getting their interest, and it helps to build that brand recognition for later on.
Very cool. Ashley Rowe, thank you very much. And thank you all for viewing. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions about digital marketing, fair housing, anything like that. Thank you so much.